Hi, welcome to Cocktail Mode, the podcast where me and my mate Dave say something other than hi, Dave.
Hola!
Talk about a classic video game and pair it with a cocktail. If you've listened to us, they're expecting to hear about the fantastic UFO Enemy Unknown. We've had some technical issues, so you're getting Tetris instead, which was going to be the episode afterwards. So apologies for that, but this is Tetris, so we're going to be talking about that little 4 block classic.
Several minutes of Taron Egerton in there as well.
Yes, lots about the film and the documentary that the film appears to be based on, although no one's saying so. We'll get to that later. So yeah, I hope you like Tetris and aren't too disappointed that it's not UFO Enemy Unknown.
How much did you pay in batteries to play Tetris over the life of it?
Yeah.
That's what they should do. They should cross-reference the amount of batteries bought between 1988 and whenever it stopped being sold.
Here's the thing, how much has a Tetris, by that metric, accelerated the death of the planet? Should Tetris be banned as a result?
Oh.
Discuss. Tetris and the Game Boy.
Yeah.
Interchangeable in my mind. They are one and the same.
I wouldn't say interchangeable, I'd say inseparable.
That's a better word.
Mm.
Tetris and the Game Boy are inseparable in my mind.
Fucking prick.
I mean, it's a NES game. Well, it's a PC game.
You say that. I mean, I've seen it in arcades. I've seen Xbox versions of it, and it is one of the games that I just look at and think that should be a handheld.
Yeah.
Even if it's on mobile phones or Game Boy, like it was when it came out. To me, it's a game on the go. It's a quick thing where you play just a little bit and then pause it for 3 hours or whatever. Because have you seen the recent versions of it?
I played a decent amount of Tetris Infinite.
Have you seen I think it's called Tetris 99.
No.
They're basically 100 people are put into a server.
Yeah.
It's basically like a last man standing. So who can go the longest in a game of Tetris? So I remember looking at it thinking, fucking hell, yes, I'll have some of this. Oh, shit. Because I haven't played it for God knows how many years. Oh, that was disappointing. I
remember, I mean, as you know, I didn't have a lot of money growing up, and I don't know, I had a Game Boy fairly early, and I've got no idea how. I don't know how that happened, but I did. I had a Game Boy at the same time as everybody else, and all of my other games, consoles and computers I had
after the fact.
Afterwards, yeah. So when they were cheaper, when people had moved on to something else. So I don't know how I got a Game Boy when it was current, but I did. And I remember taking it to school and playing link games of Tetris with people. And
awesome.
F1 Race, playing that link cable as well.
Well, that's interesting because that's something I've never done. How does the link cable version of it work?
Basically, like Super Puzzle Fighter, exactly the same thing.
So as you clear a line, they get
shit.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the vibe. It's as simple as that. And it's a good battle. It works really well, as you can imagine. Because it's 2-player and very simple, it gets quite competitive because there's only so much you can ever do. But yeah, really great. I remember, for some reason, particularly playing against Darren Ford.
Oh, okay.
An old mate who I haven't seen for a very, very long time. I haven't even thought about. But for some reason, in my brain, playing Tetris at school with Darren Ford is a thing that is still there. I mean, I'm sure I've forgotten something really, really important and still remember that for some reason. God knows why. But we've talked before about things that open up gaming to outside of its normal sphere of influence or with people talking and playing games that wouldn't have done before. The Game Boy and Tetris. The Game Boy on its own, I don't think it would have had the same impact.
No.
But the Game Boy and Tetris. And apparently, have you seen the film?
I haven't. I was trying to get hold of it and just ran out of time and didn't manage to find it.
What I have seen is the BBC documentary that it is clearly inspired by. And I mean, inspired by, as in, let's do a
Rip-off.
fictional version of this exact story, almost exactly as this documentary has told it.
Yeah.
It's just really, really fascinating. It sounds like mostly the film is pretty well grounded in reality.
Mm-hmm.
There's a car chase in it that's a load of old bollocks and a bit of KGB stuff that's nonsense, but the general sort of meat and gravy of it sounds like they've stuck to it quite well.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm shit with names, I'll never remember it, but the central character of the film, who is
Hank Rogers.
Hank Rogers, real guy, bit of a smooth talky salesman type bloke. When he's talking to the people about the Game Boy and whether they should, they're trying to decide whether to sell it with Super Mario Land or Tetris, and he says to them something along the lines of, if you put Super Mario Land in the box, it will be a machine for little boys. If you put Tetris in the box, it will be a machine for everybody.
Yeah, this is one of the things we talked about in the Never to Be Ever Heard Again pilot episode of Pac-Man. It's an everyman game. It's literally anybody can play it. There's no prior. You don't need to be interested in any subject matter. There's no skill barrier. Literally anybody can pick this up and play it.
Yeah.
Which, judging by the sales figures, half the world has.
I mean, that's probably not an exaggeration, is it?
Do you want to guess the rough sales figures as it stands currently?
What, for all the different versions of Tetris?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got to be a couple of billion.
Not quite.
But how is it not? It feels like everybody has played Tetris.
It's on its way. 520 million units sold.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously no way of tracking played, is there? How many people played it?
Apparently there are billions of sessions played online every year. So what they can track.
When I had the Game Boy and Tetris, I played it. My brother played it. You probably played it. And it's like that. I could imagine the amount of people who've played a version of Tetris. Got to be a couple of billion. Got to be.
I was going to ask you about the music.
Yes.
How ingrained in your brain is the music from Tetris?
Very.
Because I could hear literally like 2 notes of it and I know what it is.
Yeah.
Just in other things, like, you'll hear awful remixes of it on YouTube videos and things. It's just within a couple of notes. It's Tetris. It's Tetris done badly, but it's still Tetris.
Wasn't there more than one tune on the Game Boy version?
I don't remember.
I think there was more than one tune. Everyone knows the Tetris music. I'm not going to do it because every time I do music, it gets cut out.
Thing is, though, right, that's not written for this. That was a Russian folk tune from the 19th century.
I didn't know that.
One of the things I wanted to say, do you know where it comes from?
No, that's amazing.
It wasn't written for it.
I love that.
So it's like, I don't know, fucking, like, imagine somebody in Britain making it and putting, you're going to Scarborough Fair on there or something.
But I had a game called Minor or Manic Minor or something on my Acorn Electron, and the music was Greensleeves.
Oh, really?
And it used to play over and over and over.
There's a great Amstrad game called Oh Mummy.
Oh, yeah.
Where you got chased around a maze by a mummy. And it was just that one typical Egyptian song over and over and over and over and over again. It's like, oh, God, no, not again. Turn the volume down.
Oh,
I'm just looking now. The Game Boy had a second song on it.
There you go.
Johann Sebastian Bach's French Suite No. 3 in B minor.
I don't remember that.
Oh, and an original track by Tanaka. I only remember that one, the Tetris song.
Absolutely. I remember there being another one.
Yeah, which I now know is called Korobienkinik or something similar to that, but actually the right word.
What were you just reading?
I was counting how many versions of Tetris there are.
How many versions of Tetris are there, Dave?
28. That's less than I thought there would be.
Yeah. What did you first play Tetris on?
I definitely played Tetris the first ever time on the Game Boy. And to this day, I rate that as the best version of it that there's ever been. It's brilliant. I would describe it as probably a perfect video game. There's not much you could add to it. I
think it's a bit of a UK thing.
Oh, okay.
Tetris being a Game Boy game, or possibly a Europe thing. And I think it comes back to something we mentioned before about in America when the NES, or NES as they call it, was booming, we were ignoring it entirely and playing on Spectrums and Commodores and Amstrads.
Interesting. Commodores are American made.
Yeah, well, it is interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think they did particularly well in America, but they did brilliantly over here.
They were unaware of the success in this country. It still to this day takes them by surprise when they get interviewed about it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
They just had no idea.
I mean, this is just conjecture. This is just me thinking, but it seems to me the internet, being the 51st state of America, it considers Tetris a NES game. Or again, an NES game as they would call it.
Yeah.
Because as much as it was out on the PC first, PCs were much, much smaller business than they are now. And then it came out on the NES as the first sort of home console it came out on. And I think that sort of resonated in America. That remains sort of a notable thing. And then the fact that the NES kind of passed the UK and Europe by to the point where I'm fairly sure the Master System outsold it.
People did have them, just quite rarely. Most people had a computer that I knew, certainly. I mean,
Absolutely. And you tended to know, didn't you? Because it was a smaller community then. So you tended to know who else had stuff. Stephen, who lived next door to me, had a Master System at some point. Other people like you had an Amstrad.
Have I mentioned that?
Other people had Commodores. I had a Spectrum. Lots of people had Spectrums. All the cool people had Spectrums, obviously.
Well, Spectrum came out first.
It did, yeah. You could fucking tell, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I got a whole batch of Commodore 64 games recently on tape. Lucky enough to come by a Breadbrin C64 and a whole load of games. But a very good price. I was going through and logging all my new games onto my spreadsheet because I think the technical term is a massive fucking nerd. So I was adding all my new games to my spreadsheet, and where I include the year of publishing as part of the data that I capture for my spreadsheet. So many of them are 1986. It's incredible how many Commodore 64 games seem to come out in 1986. The 48K Spectrum had been around for 4 years by that point. 4 years is like an entire generation these days. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That really caught me out. And but you'll be lucky to hear I now have a Commodore 64 version of Turbo Esprit. What was I fucking saying?
The misconception that the NES was popular in anywhere outside America.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, obviously it was very popular in Japan as well. But yes, it wasn't popular in the UK, and you would imagine by extension not in Europe either. So I think when the Game Boy came out with Tetris, I think that was a lot of people's first exposure to Tetris.
Well, it's a lot of people's first exposure to the Game Boy as well, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, because it was a pack-in game.
Yeah.
That absolutely is the case. But I think Tetris had been around for a bit before the Game Boy. But I would,
85 original release.
To me, and I think, so maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I think it's true to a lot of people. The Game Boy and Tetris are combined. They are very closely interlinked things. You know, when you picture in your mind the Game Boy packaging, it's got Tetris. It's you see Tetris rather than more than you see the Game Boy.
Yeah.
And I think that's I mean, I'm with you. To me, I hadn't played Tetris before the Game Boy came along, and I've not played it on a lot else either.
Well, if you look at the list of things that had come out on, I mean, IBM PC, I didn't know anybody who had a PC.
No.
Of any description, previous to the mid-90s, when things like Doom were starting to come out.
Yeah.
And it was, generally speaking, quite well off people who had PCs.
Yeah, they were rare,
Dad would have it for work.
Yeah.
And, you might have, as a family, you might have a game or two.
I remember sort of early PC games I remember Test Drive. I saw, I think the first test drive.
Oh yeah.
Which was very rudimentary, shall we say.
I think I had the Amstrad version of Test Drive.
And then, as you say, I remember when Doom started to be a thing, and that's when PCs really started to, show themselves as a bit of a force in terms of games. It was definitely Doom. And I mean, I think you could probably look at the facts of it and point to other games, but in terms of, and I love this word, in terms of the zeitgeist, in terms of gaming and sort of the feel and what everyone was talking about and what was going on, it was Doom that really landed the PC.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Wolfenstein had come out previously, but wasn't anywhere near as pervasive as Doom was. Doom had articles in The Sun.
Yes.
And was discussed on the news.
Murder Simulator, wasn't it?
Yeah, stuff like that, which was probably all generated by publicity departments.
I'm not sure they were that clever back then. I just think...
I don't know. I've heard an interview about Grand Theft Auto, one of the original guys from DMA Designs, I think it was, who did the first version.
That's right.
All of the controversy was manufactured.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
To build up hype about the game.
Well, yeah, it worked, didn't it? We've had a bit of feedback. Dunk, hi Dunk, cheers for listening, mate. I really do appreciate listening and your feedback. Pointed out that I got the name of the magazine wrong for the Dreamcast cover disc thing. Dream On was the name of the cover disc of the official Dreamcast magazine, and I said it was Dream On magazine.
I did think it sounded odd when you said it, but I couldn't think of what it might have been.
DC UK was the magazine.
And
if you want to read up on that whole thing, there's a good article on Eurogamer. If you just, I guess, if you go to Eurogamer, they archive all their articles Eurogamer, which is fantastic. Because you can find reviews and articles from a long, long time ago. And there's a great article on there with the guy who did it, the guy who made that mistake. But he says in this article that you couldn't use it to play pirate discs, and I'm convinced you could.
You could definitely play import games.
Yes, definitely imports.
Definitely.
I'm convinced you could play pirates as well.
Yeah, I remember you had a self-booting version of UFC.
Yes,
that you didn't need it for.
That's a fair point. But I think the disc that I sort of had the pirate of that I used the most was Yu Suzuki's GameWorks. I used it to boot that. Again, unfortunately, that disc is somewhere in my loft. I've got the Dreamcast is out and usable because it has to be, because I couldn't live without it. But, that disc itself is somewhere in a box in the loft, and I couldn't find it very quickly, so I stopped looking. But
I don't know. I can't say one way or the other with regard to copies. I know it definitely booted imports. Yeah, I had a baseball game and a game called Armada.
Oh yeah,
that was a really good
shooter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a really weird sort of free roam top-down shooter where you could go anywhere. So you could go and try and beat the final boss as soon as you start. You'll die, but you could do it.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it, but it never came out over here.
But yeah, so yes. So thanks, Dunk, for pointing that out. Absolutely, yeah. DC UK was the magazine. And the other thing that was pointed out was during our flashback episode, T. Gunter, thanks. Appreciate you listening and your feedback again. Pointing out that I kind of flippantly referred to the SNES version as, a snazzier looking version of Prince of Persia, not Flashback, when we were talking about Prince of Persia. I said that the SNES version was the same game, but just snazzier looking. Not true. Apparently, it was a very different game.
Oh, okay. I never played it. I only ever played it on the Amiga.
Yeah, so I think so at the time I almost entirely played it on the SNES, but I didn't realise it was that different. So yeah, that's the thing. So again, cheers, mate. I love a bit of feedback. It's just nice.
Yeah, no, it's just good to get.
Nice that people are listening. Nice that they're paying attention. Also, just want to say hi to Rack, because Rack always listens. He's a good guy. So yeah, those three guys are definitely listening, so which is lovely. And thank you, all three of you. The T Gunter is in America somewhere. Rack's over in Ireland, and Dunk is in Scotland.
There's not much Irish representation in retro gaming.
No, other than John O'Connor.
Bushido Blade. Isn't Black
Yes,
Lotus
Black
Irish?
Lotus, he's Irish, yeah, for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
Zorro-looking motherfucker.
Great character. Good weapon.
I couldn't get on with it.
No? I loved it.
No, not my bag.
Very quick sort of fencing style, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was always better. There's the slower stuff, like the Naginata, that massive halberd thing.
Didn't somebody have a hammer? Like a giant fucking sledgehammer?
Tatsumi. Well, obviously anybody could use any weapon, couldn't they? That was kind of the thing of the game. But Tatsumi, who was the sort of the young-looking guy with the sort of the yellow jumpsuit, he could wield the sledgehammer.
Yeah,
which is just nuts. I feel Bushido is very close to having its day. I think that might be coming.
I tell you what, I kind of want a bit of notice if you do, so I can actually get some proper playtime on it. Because I have not played that game for 20 years at least. Have you ever played the second one?
I've got it. I bought it long ago.
I was going to say, because it never properly came out, did it?
That came out in Japan.
Yeah.
So it's not as good. It starts to move away from everything that made it. It doesn't completely move away from everything that made Bushido Blade good, but it does a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Always makes me think there is a Del the Funky Homo Sapien, whichever, song called The Protoculture, which is talking about basically underground retro, what is now retro underground video games.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentions Bushido Blade in it.
Oh, right, okay. That's cool.
And the lyric is, Bushido Blade 2 with sword play so excellent. And I'm convinced that 2 is TOO. Rather than the TWO. But there's no really...
Bushido Blade, 2.
Yes.
As well.
Yes, as well. Because
email him. Dear Del.
Honestly, of all the things that I would love to know in this world, that's right up there. Because there's no way of knowing unless you ask him directly.
Yeah, unless you meet him.
Dear Mr. the Funky Homo Sapien.
Surely it's Mr. Sapien. Isn't the Funky his middle name? Surely his name's Derek.
It's short for Deltron 3000, isn't it?
No, it's Derek. It's got to be Derek.
Can't be Derek. Tapper, tapper, tapper.
Oh, his name's Terran. Terran Delvon Jones.
Delvon, that's where it comes from.
Yeah. Here's a question. Where did you first play Tetris on the Game Boy? Presumably in your house, in your bedroom?
I don't know. I think...
Because I know exactly where I played Tetris for the first time.
Do you? I think my first Game Boy experience was... I think Lack Ubi got one first.
Oh, okay.
I think somebody in Lack's family had been to America and brought him one back.
All right. That must be really early then.
Yeah. So I think that was my first Game Boy experience. So I imagine that was... My first experience of Tetris was on Lack's Game Boy, whilst probably listening to Def Leppard.
Yeah, he was a big fan, wasn't he?
He was. Lack, mate. I hope you're listening.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tag you because you're a mate on Facebook and we never talk, so I'm gonna tag you, and you'll listen to this and go, well, that wasn't fucking worth my time.
No wonder I haven't spoken to him for 30 fucking years.
Yeah, it will be another 30 years before I bother again. But yeah, I think that would have been my first experience of a Game Boy, so probably by extension Tetris.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I can remember mine exactly. It was in Dixon's in Bedford.
Yeah?
They had Game Boys set up that you could just go in and play on. Yeah, so yeah, I used to go into Bedford on a Saturday morning with a £5, get the bus in for 40p, go to Mr. Paul Thurston's Vegas, play as many arcade games as I could afford to play and still have enough money to get home.
Yeah.
And then when we run out of money there, is to go to Dixon's and play on the Game Boys for like 2 hours. That used to be my Saturday morning. It was great. I loved it. The thing is, we used to just sort of literally go in like 2s and 3s, and then just like, play, blah 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 blah. Oh, I've got 88 lines. Whatever. You'll go. We never bought anything. Nobody ever told us to leave. It was great.
Simpler times, mate, wasn't it? And I know that's a really fucking old person thing to say, but it genuinely was. You could just go in and hang around in shops and nobody would tell you to fuck off your little oik or anything. As long as you didn't start. It was much simpler times.
Mm. But yeah, I've never owned a Game Boy. And yet I've played probably hundreds of hours of Tetris on the Game Boy.
What was the most lines you ever got to? Because this is the thing. And sorry to interrupt.
I honestly don't know. I hold my hands up and say I don't know because I never really kept a score in my head. I mean, I've played games of Tetris that lasted hours, so that it must have been high, but I don't know how high. I've never had a high score in mind.
Did you ever clear the 9-5? I can't remember which was the A and which was the B game, but there was one was the one version you started with a whole load of rubbish on the screen and you had to clear it off.
Oh yeah, vaguely remember that. I think I preferred the classic mode. So I played that the most.
But 9-5 was the hardest level of I think it was the B game, where you started with all the shit and you had to clear it off.
Oh, okay.
And so that was
don't remember it.
That was a badge of honour to have cleared that. Mm. But I got my highest ever score on Tetris was 188 lines.
Yeah.
And there's two things about this. And one is that that's how I remember measuring your ability at Tetris.
Yeah.
Not by the score, not by, because there was a score. It was always by how many lines you'd done. Mm. And again, nobody talks about that. I mean, Tetris is kind of, it's having its, I don't know, I was about to say third wave, it could be 17th.
I was going to say 17th.
Yeah, it could be. But
it's never gone away.
Because that 13-year-old, beat it, didn't he? He hit the kill screen on the NES version, because the NES version is considered like the version to challenge yourself on. So yeah, this 13-year-old American kid got to the kill screen on Tetris.
Jesus.
And so that sort of reinvigorated a lot of interest in that sort of that murderously hardcore community. And that that doesn't comprehend to me. To me, as an average Tetris player, just somebody who had it on the Game Boy and played it exclusively on the Game Boy. Until Tetris Infinite come along, I'd not played Tetris on anything else.
Yeah.
And so I always measured my achievement. And I remember, at school, sixth form, measuring your achievement against others by how many lines you cleared.
Rather than something useful like grades.
Yeah. Yeah. What? School? No. Don't be daft. What university did you get into? No, mate. How many lines, Tetris? But yeah, that's how you sort of quantified how good you were at Tetris. And I never got to 200 lines. I got to 188 lines, and then I was. This is a story I was debating whether to tell or not, but let's see how we can do. So this is a long time after Tetris as well. This is 2002, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was 2002 or 2001. I think I went to Corfu with my girlfriend at the time. The nice bit of Corfu, not the chavvy, stabby, get pissed and throw up in your own shoes part. Even though it was 2002 or 2001, that is, I took my Game Boy and Tetris and probably a couple of other things. I guess I didn't have another handheld by then, and I'm fairly sure it was my original Game Boy as well, not my Game Boy Color or anything like that. But the point is, I was sitting at breakfast outside a lovely, lovely, gorgeous summer's morning in Corfu at that breakfast table, playing Tetris, and obviously the relaxed mood and the wonderful time I was having was paying off on me because I was rattling up the lines. And it sounds like a Scarface thing, doesn't it? But I was,
that needs to be the quote for this episode.
I was racking up lines in Corfu. And yeah, so I was sat there concentrating very hard, and my girlfriend come and sat opposite me and was like, "What are you doing?" And I would have gone, "Ugh," or something like that. which I guess inspired her to try and distract me from what I was doing, which she did with her foot under the table. And I'll let you fill in the blanks on that one. And so, I got to 188 lines and then was too distracted to concentrate. And never got anywhere close ever again. So thank you, ex-girlfriend who shan't be named. You ruined my chance of ever getting to 200 lines on Tetris.
You came up short.
So to speak. So I watched a BBC documentary, quite an old one. It was in 4:3 and not HD, so it was pretty old.
2012.
Was it? God, it looked older than that. So everything in that documentary, and sort of even the sequence of events and the characters that they focused on and all that sort of shit, is basically what happens in this new film, plus some Hollywood stuff to judge it up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there's basically three main characters: Nikolai Belikov, Henk Rogers, and what's his name? The guy,
Alexei Pajitnov.
In this documentary, they were saying Pajitnov the whole way through. So
there you go.
I assume that's how you say it.
We'll just call him Jeff.
Those are the three kind of good guys. And then the bad guys are basically Robert Maxwell and his son. Because, I mean, the guy was a massive bellend, so it's not hard to imagine that his sons were shitbags. Yeah, and this kind of in-betweeny sort of Hungarian geezer. And this Hungarian geezer on this documentary is fucking hilarious because he's got a thick Hungarian accent that every now and again dips into Cockney wide boy.
Oh, like a footballer that's lived here for a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was it the Fast Show that they did?
Yeah.
There's like a Colombian who played for Newcastle, and he just had like Geordie slang in the middle of his Spanish every now and then.
That's exactly what this geezer's like. But yeah, that documentary is well worth a look. It's really, really interesting. And some of it you just couldn't make up. Like this Belikov guy is trying to sort of understand what's happened to the rights to Tetris for this company called Elorg, who are part of the USSR.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to the point where like the three interested parties are coming to his office on the same day, and he's trying to avoid the meeting. And you can imagine why somebody in Hollywood has gone, this is going to be a great film.
Yeah.
All we need to do is stick a car chase and it'd be a winner. Yeah, I would recommend watching that. Absolutely, that documentary. I think I'm going to watch the film knowing what I know of it to be true now. I think I'll be more comfortable watching the film. I like Taron Egerton as well.
I had it in mind to watch it anyway.
Yeah.
I saw the initial trailer for it and I thought, that looks quite interesting. I like things like that.
I'll tell you what, it was interesting listening to interviews with Pajitnov. Something he said that really sort of, I never really thought about before. But he said that the motivation in Tetris is very negative.
Okay.
He says, when you think about how Tetris works, as soon as you do something good, it disappears.
Okay, yeah.
And all you're left with is the bad.
Your mistakes.
Yeah. And so the motivation to create order from chaos is driven by you knowing that chaos has come about by your own mistakes.
Yeah. Well, it's been the subject of various academic studies.
Yeah?
Yeah, there's loads of stuff that's been written about Tetris. It's just fascinating. It's just, I mean, like you said, name another game where a film, there's enough story about the creation of it to make a film.
Yeah.
None.
No. And I think from even the facts of Tetris would have made a very interesting film. It's a bit of a shame that it has been quite so Hollywoodized. Because it didn't need to be. It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
It's a bit mind-boggling. And Robert Maxwell genuinely threatening to go to Gorbachev about it. Genuinely happened. It's like, for fuck's sake, you just couldn't make this shit up.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to, but they did feel they needed to tack a fucking car chase on it. It's interesting for Genov. I saw an interview with him from last year, and he talks like someone who grew up in like Soviet Russia.
Well, he did.
Well, no, but I mean, he's been in America for decades, and he's still got an incredibly thick Russian accent, and he's still incredibly humble. And he turns up. The other geezer, Hank Rogers, is very American looking, very very white teeth, very sort of
very white teeth.
You know what they like? They love their fucking teeth, don't they? Those Americans getting a t-shirt of that made up. And he's still looking quite sort of slick, and he's old, but he's still a very good looking guy, you know what I mean? And he's still there and being sort of quite charming. And then Pajitnov just looks like you or me, literally like you and me sat here recording this. Not well shaved, got a Tetris t-shirt on that someone's clearly given him because he had mustard down the shirt he turned up in. And he's just so down to earth. The interview asked him when you started getting paid for Tetris, which was 1996. He didn't get anything for over a decade. But when he finally he said, that was because I was doing other stuff. I had other games out, so I was getting royalties from then, and then the Tetris money started. So that was quite a good year. So I said to myself, I'm going to buy a new watch. And I'm not going to look at the price. I'm just going to pick the watch I like the most. And he said I ended up buying a £100 Seiko watch. And that's it just looks like him. He just looks so much like he doesn't put a lot of value in it. He doesn't put a lot of value in the getting paid for it and the fame or anything like that. He just doesn't seem interested. It just seems like a proper, genuinely lovely human being who happened to make the most addictive game that's ever been created.
He's the anti-Peter Molyneux.
But yeah, he seems like a great bloke. Big fan. I'd like to try a couple of his other games, actually.
What else did he do?
When he mentions, again in this interview, something called Pandora's Box, he never really explained what it was about.
Oh, that's not a game. That's a genuine thing. He created Pandora's Box. He put all the world's evil into it. It's one of those Soviet experiments they don't tell you about.
Are you saying that Tetris is hope?
Yeah, it's the last thing he put in.
What other versions of Tetris have you played then, other than the Game Boy one in Dixon's?
Mm-hmm.
What other versions have you played?
I can remember having a version of it on the Amstrad.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it is the most ported game. The original version of Tetris has been ported to over 60 different systems. So any computer or console that existed at the time and since has had a version, effectively.
So is it on the Zebo?
Oh, shit. You've thrown it back in my face, you bastard. Have you bought one yet?
I haven't.
It is on the Zebo.
Is it? Of course it fucking is. That's incredible.
Brilliant. I love it.
Amazing. I know there was Weltris, I think, was on the Virtual Boy. I don't think Tetris was.
There's Weltris it's the top-down three-dimensional one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you drop. Yeah, I played Weltris, I think, on the Amiga. I think there was like a sort of homebrew version that somebody had made, which was brilliant, absolutely fantastic. I remember at the time thinking, this is fantastic. It's genius. Hard as balls. But then there was a proper full version of effectively the same thing called Blockout, which came out.
Okay.
Which is just Weltris done well. And I'm pretty sure I had that on the Mega Drive, because I can remember you had obviously original Mega Drive controller, A, B, C, and start are the only buttons you've got.
Yeah.
So you've got a Tetris piece. Well, there's slightly malformed Tetris pieces to make them 3D, and you've got 3 dimensions of rotation. So you can rotate them left and right, up and down, and in the Z-axis effectively.
Yeah.
So the start button was the chuck it down into the thing button.
Yeah.
There was no pause. Every button was used. So you had to hold the start button to go into the menu to, like, you know, quit game and all that sort of bollocks. I always remember at the time thinking that was really, really weird. Like, it uses all 4 of the buttons during the actual gameplay of the game.
Yeah.
Like, no other Mega Drive game had ever done that, because the start button was like pause or, you know, main menu or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's always stood out in my mind for that. I've played, I think out of all the variations that I've ever played, none have grabbed me like basic, normal Tetris does. Every single one of them, I look at and I think, it's fine. It's, you know, it's got some good things about it, but it's not what I want. I just want Tetris, the normal version of Tetris.
I'm with you on that. I think there's only, I think the only game I've ever played to any extent, I think, a similar sort of game is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, to give it its full name.
HD.
Because, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, even Dr. Mario came out on the Game Boy and it just wasn't. I'd rather be playing Tetris. You know what I mean? It's not as good as Tetris, so why would I bother playing it?
Yeah.
And all sorts of other variations. I never played Weltris. I remember it existing. I never played it.
I have just remembered another version. There was a version which was probably a homebrew thing again on the Amiga called Sextris. So you basically had
probably a homebrew game.
Definitely,
I mean,
definitely a homebrew
definitely game. A homebrew
game. And you had people, and they obviously slotted into each other in certain ways. I'd forgotten about that until literally this moment. I've got a similar version on my phone at the moment called...
What, to Sextris?
No. It's like a Tetris ripoff.
Right.
But it's the stuff nothing falls. It's just like a grid that you just like insert pieces into to clear lines.
Okay. Like that's interesting, because the game that gave Paginoff the idea is a little tile game, and all the pieces are made up of 5 squares in different shapes, and you have to fit them into a rectangle, like a tangram.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. And that's what gave him the idea, taking that and trying to make a game of it when he should have been doing real work for the Soviet Union, tracking missiles and shit, you know. But interestingly, when I worked at Electrolux, there were a couple of guys there. One was called Damien, and I can't remember the name of the other guy. And they were the business analysts. Their job was to generate reports for the business, and they had got so slick at it because they were so good at Excel that it took them like a couple of hours in the morning on a Monday. So the rest of the time they were basically dicking around.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah. And their version of dicking around was building Tetris in Excel. A working, actually functioning version, just, you know, on, not by looking stuff up on the internet like everybody else does for Excel, but through their own knowledge, building Tetris in Excel, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, I'm pretty good at Excel, but fuck's sake.
Do you know somebody made a fully playable version of UFO Enemy Unknown in Excel?
Really?
Yep. You can download it. You can play it. It's brilliant.
Is it?
No, it is. It's genuinely good.
God.
It's amazing.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, actually insane. The definition of insane. God, that's crazy.
I do remember hearing a story once. I think I read it in PC Gamer must be about 20 years ago now. But do you remember the game Second Life?
Yeah.
Or have you ever heard of Second Life?
Yeah, it was one of those things.
Basically, you can make anything.
Yeah.
Most people just use it for like fantasies.
Yeah.
But you could genuinely make anything. And there was a guy that came up with the idea of a game which was a cross between Tetris and Bingo. And he called it Tringo. So Tetris Bingo.
Okay, yeah.
And apparently just copyrighted it, made money out of it, published it as a real game. Like it's probably the only good thing that ever came out of Second Life.
But it has evolved and been crossed with so many different things, isn't it? Especially since since the Tetris company came into existence in '96 and took the rights back, it's been doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, isn't it? Keep it alive.
Well, that's it. I mean, there are very, very few other games that have got the legacy that Tetris has got.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might have like something like Mario. It's got sequels and spin-offs and sequels and spin-offs and sequels. But Tetris is still coming out as just Tetris.
Yeah.
On every new system that comes along.
Yeah, every phone, every watch. Yeah. Literally everything.
There was a time when Space Invaders was still coming out on everything that ever came out.
Yeah.
It seems to have sort of died away now. It's not such a big thing. I think because everybody's sick of it. Whereas Tetris is still good and still playable.
It's still fucking addictive.
Well, that's it. It's that moment, that first moment in a playthrough of Tetris where you fuck up and you never recover from it. You just put one thing in the wrong place. You think, oh shit, I didn't mean to put that.
Yeah, and it's still there. You're battling away right at the top of the screen, and that little fucker is still
for
down
half
there
an hour. You're trying to get rid of that one square that you can't get.
The satisfaction if you do, though, is incredible, isn't it? You work your way back down to that bad boy.
But the early sort of first, I don't know, 20 minutes of any Tetris game is torturously slow now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you know what you're doing. It's ingrained in your brain. You're just, come on. You've got to wait till like sort of, 20 or 30 levels in or whatever before it gets to a speed where it's up to speed with you.
Yeah.
And I love that moment. I love the moment. I don't know if it's on every version, but the version that I have one of the fondest memories of was on my Nokia 3310 phone. And it did the thing where it speeds up, gets faster, and eventually holding down to drop a piece actually slows it down because the game has got so much faster. So you're actually using that to slow the pieces down and then move them around. And I've always thought that was just brilliant. I thought it was hilarious that it got so far in that I'm actually slowing the game down by making the pieces move faster than they were at the start. But yeah, that version is probably my fondest memory version.
Yeah. I
was playing it once. I was going to London to go and see a band, and I started playing it as the train pulled out of Bedford Station. So like 3/4 an hour, 50 minutes into London. One game, all the way. Paused it, got off the train, went to see the band, back on the train, turned my phone back on, open it up, resume, and then played it for the entire journey back. So that one game was about 2 hours long.
Jesus.
So I can't even begin to imagine how scores or lines or anything were on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an incredibly good playable version of it.
It does align well with the handheld thing, doesn't it? I mean, it's not a complicated, and just the simplicity of it. I mean, even, I guess, with the Game Boy basically replicating the NES controls, it was a natural fit. But Pajitnov still says that he prefers to play it on a keyboard.
Really?
Yeah, because he built it on a keyboard.
Well, yeah, I suppose so.
It's like that's it.
Do you think he uses QAOP space?
I mean, that's a reference that nobody outside the UK will get, surely.
Yeah.
I don't think, because I remember the first time I tried to play a PC game rather than a home computer game. Mm-hmm. The difference is subtle but important.
Yeah.
And it was like WASD as the controls. I was like, what? What the fuck is this madness? That's just insane.
Yeah.
And that fucking thing that some games did where they locked either quit to the Q key or pause to the P key, and you can the fuck is wrong with you? How am I supposed to control your game?
Yeah.
But yes, Pajitnov, big fan of the keyboard for his games of Tetris. Doesn't sound like he was particularly good at it either. I think he said he got the space shuttle once.
Space shuttle? I don't remember.
Do you not know these things?
See, this comes down to the versions, I think, that I've played it on.
Well, yeah. So I think a long time ago, and I haven't played it recently. I didn't play it as research. I watched a lot of telly, basically, as my research for this. But yeah, I think like if you cleared level like 9 2. I think there was scores as well on the A game. I can't remember which. You got to a certain score and a little rocket took off, and then you got to a bigger rocket took off.
All right.
And the highest score or level of clearance, it was a space shuttle, not quite accurate model of the space shuttle took off, and then a bunch of.
So a Game Boy game had a not quite accurate version of something. That's a first. What did you expect?
Well, you need to know. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because you need to know about these little victory sequences. They were so yeah. You did level, and the size of your rocket got bigger. I mean, whatever. Moving on.
Yeah.
But so yeah, and you're going to need to know that later on.
Okay. Does that pertain to something?
When it comes to cocktail time,
yes.
It's good that we're having this conversation because it will be relevant. But yeah, no, it's a well-known thing, mate. It's just you that has passed by. It's not a secret or anything like that. Yeah, as I say, this interviewer said to Paget Novier, how good are you? And he said, I've seen the space shuttle once. That was it. So yeah, he invented it. Not great at it, but yeah, brilliant. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
One quick thing, going back to it being primarily a handheld game. I think the reason that it should always be a handheld game and is best suited to be a handheld is that it doesn't need anything. There's nothing you can add. Like it's very specifically that 10 square wide grid by however many it is high. 25, I think.
Fuck knows.
But if it's Tetris, like normal everyday Tetris, there's nothing else you can add.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can have that fill the screen, like on a mobile device, it fills the screen lovely. Looks brilliant, looks fantastic. But I remember Amstrad versions of I've seen arcade versions of it. Where it's still the same, it's
the same thing.
It's the same grid, just they've filled up the background with shit.
Yeah.
It's literally like, okay, here's the game, but yeah, what about the rest of the screen? I don't know, just put a picture on there or something. And that's what a lot of the other versions are. It's Tetris in little bit of the screen and then something else going on somewhere else.
So I think I may have called it Tetris Infinite earlier, but it's actually called Tetris Effect, the VR version.
Oh, okay. I'd like to play a VR version.
So I found the VR version of Tetris a bit annoying.
Right. Why?
I shouldn't, because it's a fantastic game. Because it's Tetris and it's beautiful. And you say, stuff going on in the background. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But with superb music, I've got an inkling that it's developed by somebody I like. I think it might be the guy or the company that made Rez may have made Tetris Effect. Quick pause while I look it up. One of the producers of Tetris Effect was Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who was involved in Rez, Space Channel 5, Lumines, Child of Eden, lots of very cool, very stylish games. And then he made Tetris Effect, which is, as you said, it's Tetris in a VR space with a big Tetris board in front of you playing Tetris.
Mm-hmm.
And I really struggled with it because I assume that there were probably settings that I didn't tinker with or could have done, but I had to physically move my head to being able to see the bucket, what's coming next, whatever it's called. The chute, I think, is probably what it's called. And so rather than it kind of just being in the periphery of my vision and being able to see it without looking,
I had to specifically look.
Yeah, and so I really struggled with Tetris. I mean, it's beautiful, Tetris Effect. The music's beautiful. What's going on in the background is beautiful, and it does have a very mesmeric effect on you as you're playing it. But yeah, that thing about moving your head, and I assume you can probably change the settings, but I never did.
You almost want like a picture-in-picture thing, don't you?
Yeah.
In the corner.
That would work.
Vision.
Yeah. But yeah, very, very beautiful game. Absolutely stunning. And if anyone's got any sort of VR thing, it's definitely worth a play.
Have you ever seen it being played on a building?
No, I've heard it. I think
it's glorious. Just Google it. Tetris on a building. God knows how they do it. It's obviously a series of like LED lights or something.
Yeah.
Computer controlled to some fucking black magic degree, but it's genius, and I'd absolutely love to do it. I did play. What did I play? I think I played Pong once on the side of a building. That like an RT tech project thing in Leicester once that had like a giant Atari 2600 joystick that was like as big as you. So you're really struggling to move this fucking thing to play Pong, and that was great fun. But yeah, if you just Google Tetris on a building, there's videos of it, and it looks fantastic. God knows how much time it took somebody to come up with.
And I think it's kind of, it speaks again to just the ubiquity of it, doesn't it? Tetris as a thing, it's just.
Well, like we said, it's universal.
Universal is the word, isn't it?
There's no barrier to it, unless you haven't got thumbs, I guess, and even then, it's bound to be some other way to play it.
Do you know what? There's a sort of a documentary about the early days. I think it's like the first ever Tetris World Championship or something like that, which is obviously an event that happened in some tiny corner of America.
Yeah.
The World Championship.
World's Championship.
Of like Delaware or something. But anyway, and it's this old documentary. It's called like Tetris, like the agony and the ecstasy. It's not something, but it's along those lines. The order of something or other, and it's actually quite interesting because it's about this guy trying to solve this Tetris and going around and meeting all these people who are the best at Tetris, and it is good. It's well worth a watch. It's like the ecstasy of order, something like that. Anyway, whatever. And there's a point when this guy is going around and he's meeting all these people who are brilliant at Tetris, and he meets this girl, and she's playing Tetris, and he says to her, I notice you only ever turn clockwise. Why is that? And she's like, what?
Oh, brilliant.
Just no idea you could turn the pieces both ways.
Oh,
and she was like,
word.
I mean, at that time, you think now how far the Tetris, like in terms of like this kid breaking the game basically recently, how far it's come from this girl who was one of the best in the world at it, who only ever turned the pieces clockwise.
To be fair, I do through laziness a lot of the time. Because it doesn't matter, does it? Until quite far in. It doesn't really make a difference.
No, absolutely.
If I have to spin it 3 times, 6 times, 7, to get it just right.
Yeah. I've just remembered that I've played another version of Tetris.
Wow.
My lovely wife bought for me a physical version of Tetris.
Okay.
I think it might be called Tetris Duel.
All right.
Not dissimilar to, I guess, like Connect 4, like a stand-up thing.
Right.
And you have, obviously, you've got pieces and your opponent has pieces, and this thing stands between you, and you drop them in the top.
Oh, okay.
And it's got, it keeps score electronically.
Oh, excellent.
And it was actually quite good fun. I remember we played it during lockdown a little bit. But yeah, it's really quite clever how it, it's obviously, it's a concept that works, isn't it? It's just, so yeah, that's another version of Tetris I've played.
I don't know if I've still got it, but I used to have a version of Tetris Jenga.
Oh.
So you build your Jenga tower out of Tetris pieces.
How do you remove them?
Very carefully.
Well, that's Jenga. Yeah, that doesn't look like fun to me. Do you know what is fun? Drinking. As is traditional, you can go first.
Okay.
And talk to me about the cocktail that you have chosen to go along with one of the classic video games.
One of the best games of all time.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any denying that.
It's very, very high on the list.
I've mentioned before that I've got a list somewhere where I just tried to write down what I considered like the best games ever made, and there's like 100 and something games on there. And Tetris is absolutely on there, and I won't have any arguments against it either. It's just that good.
It's purity. It's just the purity of design of it. It's so simple, but it's so good. And
so your cocktail to pair with this piece of perfection is?
So my drink is a bit of a pun, as they always are.
Of course.
It's the Liquid Zen.
Oh, nice.
For that moment when you're just breezing through it.
Yeah.
And you're coping with everything that comes along. It's just like you said with your Corfu experience. You get in that moment, don't you, where you're playing a game and you may have just picked up and thought, I'll just play for 5 minutes. Before you know it, you're like, this is the best game of Tetris I've ever played, bar none. I'm in it. I'm in the zone. It's going brilliantly, and then you blink, and it's gone.
Yeah, it takes that much, doesn't it? It's like you shake your head to clear your focus or something, and then it's all over.
Or you flip something counterclockwise instead of clockwise, and from that moment on, you should have stuck to clockwise. But yeah, it sounds quite nice actually. I think I might have a look at this. Apologies for imperial measurements, but it's 2 ounces of Charbet green tea vodka, which on its own sounds quite nice.
Yeah,
I'm interested by that. 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup, 8 slices of cucumber.
Oh wow!
And 2 fresh ginger medallions.
Ooh.
So it's effectively lime juice and a bit of syrup with some green tea vodka.
Yeah,
so
the cucumber
not particularly complicated, but
no.
Yeah, I thought it was a good fit. I really wanted to go for a White Russian, but I thought it's too lazy. I can't do it. I wanted to. I was thinking about actually using one of the ones from Lebowski's, because they've got loads of different versions for different characters within the film. So they put a spin on some of them, and it's not on their menu anymore. I looked up their menu yesterday, and they've changed it. So there's a couple that have gone, and there's a couple of new ones on there that I didn't recognise. So I'm going to have to go back to finish them off.
It was a while ago you were there, though, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was like 8 years.
Yeah.
But they used to do one called the Nihilist, which had absinthe in it. Yeah. And it was delicious. It was the nicest one. Well, I say the nicest. It was definitely the strongest one. But yeah, I remember thinking at the time, oh God, this is amazing. This is absolutely
I love a bit
delightful. And I was thinking the Nihilist, but it didn't feel right.
No, I can see that.
Tetris is a good experience. It's a happy experience.
It is,
and it's a pure thing that you get into, and Zen was very much on my mind. I think works quite well for it.
Yeah, I like that, mate. I like that a lot.
I was in Firebug the other week. Went to go see a guy, and they've got like one of the best stocked bars you'll ever see.
Mm.
And I was chatting to the girl behind the bar because we were there fairly early and it wasn't that busy. And I did say to her, so if I've got like a cocktail that I know the ingredients of and you've got it, could you make it? She's like, yeah, probably. By all means, come down like when it's a quiet day, like on a weekday during the day or whatever. And if you've got a list of ingredients that you want us to put together, we'll do it. Right. I may have to come down one day.
Yeah. So what are you doing next week?
I've got Monday off.
Let's make that happen. That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, most good bars will make whatever you want. Right, so what's in your drink again?
2 ounces of green tea vodka, 1 ounce of fresh lime juice, 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup, 8 slices of cucumber, and 2 fresh ginger medallions.
That does sound good. I wonder if like green tea vodka has got like, because the Deckard from the flashback episode had matcha tea in it.
Yeah.
And that was lovely, but that was a completely different cocktail.
Well, green tea is quite subtle, isn't it?
I've never had it.
I'm not keen. The times I've tried it, I thought it's sort of hot water with a bit of a flavour to it. Effectively.
I mean, that's all tea other than proper tea, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
everything other than PG, that's what it's just. Oh, it smells nice. It tastes like dishwater.
Yeah,
that's tea. That's how it works.
But no, I'd be interested to give that a try.
Yeah, it sounds good. I guess that vodka's got to be purchasable from somewhere. Yeah, no, I like the sound of that, and I love the name and how it fits. I mean, you've done a top job there, mate. That's
like I said, I was pinned to White Russians, and then I thought, no, it's too easy. I can't do that.
Yeah, and it reminds me, coming back to this guy Mizuguchi, who made Tetris Effect and also made Rez and Space Channel 5. Those are games that all you get in that state with. I think there's a name for it. There's the state where you're just almost at one, where you stop thinking and just do.
Yeah.
I think there is a video game term for it. I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
The quasi-sequel to Rez called Child of Eden is a game that I remember that happening to me, like, to the point where I was playing the game and doing all right over and over again, playing the game, doing all right. And then one time I was playing it and I just went straight through to the end and beat the end boss because I just went completely into this headspace where there was no thinking. It was just...
Yeah.
It's a very cool thing. So I love that. I think that's a great shout just for that name.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
So what have you gone for?
I went for a cocktail called the Cosmonaut.
Oh, okay.
So you'll realise now why.
Yes.
I made
it be something like that.
A point of talking about the rockets earlier. And rockets, Russian cosmonaut. It really is as simple as that.
That's fair.
My journey with this cocktail, as with all the best cocktails, sort of started there and went on. It was created by a guy called Sasha Petraska, who is sadly no longer with us. He died in his home when he was 42. But he was very sort of central to sort of the rebirth of cocktails around sort of 2013, 2014, when cocktails started to come back in and be cool and not a cheesy thing that people did at naff parties.
Yeah,
he was very central to that. American guy, based in New York, and he sort of accidentally reinvented the speakeasy as a cool way to do cocktail bars. He took over a cocktail bar and had to, by necessity, make sure that people were quiet and that it had a secret entrance and nobody knew about it, because otherwise they would kick off.
Did he not have a license or something?
No, he had a license. He just knew that all it would take was one complaint and then be shut down.
Yeah.
Let's say it was necessity, but it did fit with his personal thing in that cocktails should be classier. So he had rules, like men weren't allowed to start conversations with women in his cocktail bar.
I like it.
And he had all these rules like no hollering, no heckling, no all this sort of stuff. And if you didn't loiter outside. And it was out of necessity, but also out of his own. He loved the classic era of cocktails. He used to dress in baggy trousers and braces and all that sort of thing. And he sounds like a very cool human being. And he invented this cocktail called the Cosmonaut. And it's actually a bit of a pun, which is nice because that's what we do.
That's what I do.
Yes, you're very much the pun guy. So this is somebody who used to work with him said that he came up with the name to mock people and the popularity of the Cosmopolitan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, which this is not. So it's a Cosmonaut.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very similar to. There's a thing called a breakfast martini, which is basically gin shaken up with marmalade. And this is jam, raspberry jam, 3 level bar spoons raspberry jam. And then your favourite gin, 2 ounces of that, and then 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice.
Right.
And that's it. And you just shake it up over ice. and double strain it out into a glass, take all the pips out of your raspberry jam, and it's bloody delicious.
Yeah.
That
sounds nice.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet, but also kind of not.
Yeah.
It almost, when you first drink it, it almost tastes like a raspberry cheesecake, because the raspberry hits you and the lemon juice kind of makes that sing a little bit, because raspberry and lemon goes really well together. And then it settles down and turns into just a really fucking good drink. A really nice, proper, grown-up, tasty drink.
Yeah.
And yeah, really simple. Gin, jam and lemon juice. And I think that's where craftsmen show their stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's all very well and good being able to make an incredible cocktail out of 17 very precisely measured, and I don't have a problem with that, don't get me wrong. But when you can make something new and brilliant out of gin, jam and lemon juice.
Yeah, 3 ingredients.
Yeah, you know what you're up to. You are good. So yeah, that's what the Cosmonaut is, and I like, because I talked earlier about how the man who invented Tetris,
Alexei,
how he was sort of down to earth and nice and a genuine human being, and it sounds like this Sasha Petrescu was a very similar person, and I kind of liked that. I didn't do that on purpose, obviously, but it did seal the deal for me. The name Cosmonaut started the conversation, but reading about Sasha and reading about Alexei, I think they would have got on.
Yeah.
They sound like very similarly wired human beings. So the Cosmonaut it is. So if you've got a jar of raspberry jam in your house and a lemon and some gin, make yourself a Cosmonaut. It's really, really nice.
I might be able to.
It's really nice. Really, and again, it's genuinely surprising how simple it is and how nice it is. It's interesting as well. There's a guy on YouTube called Steve the Bartender. He's an Australian.
I've seen him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like him a lot. He's quite down to earth as well.
Yeah.
He was talking about how it makes you realise how many websites doctor their images. Because when you look up pictures of the Cosmonaut on websites, even Difford, to have a rare, not positive word to say about it.
We'll have to edit that out.
It's bright pink in all the pictures, like bright pink, like raspberry squash or something like that. And when you make it, it's not. It's kind of a really dull, almost milky pink.
Yeah.
Steve mentions that in his, and so, which is good, because when I made it, I didn't think I'd done it wrong, because it doesn't. It's not bright pink. So if you do make it, don't expect it to look like most of the pictures you'll find on the internet.
Yeah.
The other drink that I didn't go for was the Sputnik No. 2. Again, for similar reasons.
Yeah, you got to think about cocktails that end in number 2.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I went for the number 2 because the number 1 wasn't as nice. But the Sputnik No. 2, it wasn't great. I mean, it's very drinkable, but it's not a million miles away from a vodka and orange, basically. But it's not vodka. It's white rum, brandy, orange juice, and sugar syrup. And it's nice enough. And I was sort of happy to try it, and I was going to use it. And then I found the Cosmonaut, and that was feckin' lovely. So that the poor old Sputnik No. 2 got knocked into a cocked hat. But yes, if you want to try it, Sputnik No. 2, which is a very, very drinkable cocktail. It's very refreshing. As you can imagine, it's 60 ml of fresh orange juice, 30 ml each of like white rum, so like Bacardi and cognac, 30 ml each of those, and then 15 ml of sugar syrup, or like a teaspoon of sugar. And that's it. But apparently it was served in underground clubs all over the Eastern Bloc back in the day. So very sort of famous in those sort of circles. With very simple ingredients, very like really cheap rum and crappy brandy and tinned orange juice.
Yeah, probably a way of making something good out of bad ingredients.
Yeah, and it's nice enough. It's a nice cocktail, but it's nowhere near as nice as the Cosmonaut. So I mean, try both, but you'll prefer the Cosmonaut. I almost guarantee it. As I mentioned at the beginning, next time out we'll be doing UFO Enemy Unknown, which was supposed to be this week's episode. It's a good one. It's worth waiting for. So once we've got our technical issues sorted, that will be up same time next week. Say goodbye, Dave.
Cheerio.